Alright, in this video we are going to create a VirtualBox for Windows 10 and set it up to be dual booted with Arch Linux. So the reason we're doing this in a VirtualBox is because it can be kind of a complicated setup once you are getting Arch Linux in there, and so it's better to test out on a VirtualBox so you don't hurt your machine before you're ready to actually do a real dual boot. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we want to create a new machine. We want to create a new one. There we go. And you can just call it whatever you want. I'm just calling mine Windows 10. Yeah, 2 gigabytes of RAM should be about fine. Make sure it's Microsoft and Windows 10 64-bit. If you're running a 64-bit machine, you want to create the virtual hard disk now. And we're going to create. 50 is good. I'm just going to pump it up to 60 so that it has enough room for the Arch Linux box on it too. Alright, and then once we created it, there's just some settings we need to change. So, first we're going to go and up the processors because Windows can be pretty intensive. It's a big operating system, so it's good to have at least 2 or 3 processors. So that's in the system processor section. Motherboard's fine. Another thing we need to change is in the motherboard right here. We want to enable FE right there because UEFI booting is how most Windows machines do it. So it's better to boot in UEFI rather than in legacy mode or BIOS mode. All right. And now one last thing is we just need to insert a disk here so we can go up to the add optical drive, and we want to find our Windows ISO, which I do not have here, so we can just go up here and add it, and here it is, and choose, and we can get rid of this other one. Alright, cool. So that's all the settings we need, so we're ready to start it up. A couple things. So you want to say that you don't have a product key. That will work fine. And we want to do the Windows 10 Home is good. Accept your terms. And we want to do a custom on there. That is good on the unallocated space since it's a fresh machine. Oh, and this will take a while. Alright, now that we have Windows going on our box, there's just a couple of settings we need to change before we can actually dual boot it, and then we also need to partition the hard drive. So the first thing that we need to do is we are going to disable fast startup. So there's a couple ways to do this. On the virtual machine, you don't actually need to. Generally, they're set up so it's already disabled, but we can always check it ourselves, and if you're doing a real machine, you're going to want to do this. So we right-click this, go to Power Options, and we go to choose what the power buttons do. And so generally, if you have fast startup, it will show up here, and you can click change settings that are currently available, uncheck the box, and then click save changes. But for the virtual machine, unnecessary. And then another way to check this is we can go to our registry editor. If it doesn't show up on your machine, because most non-VirtualBox Windows 10 setups will have fast startup. So we go to a registry editor, say yes. Then we want to go in here, we go to H key local machine, system, current control set, and then we need to get to session manager. Wait, did I miss this? Local machine, system, current control set. Yeah, and then it would be under Session Manager here, which is not showing up. Oh, wait, no. Sorry, one more thing. Control There we go. Then we go down and it's Session Manager. Session Manager and Power. And here we go, Hybrid Boot Enabled. We want to make sure to set this to 0. So, okay, so I guess this is still something you got to do in the VirtualBox, but it doesn't work through the power option. So we go here and we're going to right click and modify the value. We want to set it to 0 and click OK. All right, cool. So now we have our fast startup disabled. So that's good. So now the next step we want to do is we want to turn off our secure boot. So first let's check if our machine supports secure boot. So what we're going to do is we want to press Windows key R, open up our run, and we're going to run our MS Info 32. Oh, it's one word. There we go. All right, and we got our system summary here. So we want to make sure our BIOS mode is UEFI, which is good. And then what we want to see is our secure boot state, which should be somewhere. Secure boot state unsupported. So we're good on that sense. I'll show you roughly how to do that in a sec, but you have to go into your firmware, your UEFI firmware options to turn it off. Maybe we'll be able to do that on a virtual machine, maybe not. There's lots of ways to do it. You just got to boot into your BIOS. There's actually an easy way to get into BIOS on Windows. Rather than having to do it during startup, you can actually reset your machine into BIOS. So just go to your settings. Update and security. And then we want to go to recovery. And we'd go to advanced startup and restart now. So I'm going to do that in 1 second, but first let's partition our disk. So to partition the disk, we just need to go to disk management. Here we go, create and format hard disk partitions. All right, and we have our C drive right here. So this is the one that we want to partition. This big old 59.37 gigabyte thing. So we can right click and we're going to shrink volume. All right, and so it says here we have 45,000 megabytes to it. So that's 1,000 megabytes is 1 gigabyte. So we want to get ourselves about let's just give ourselves like 20 gigabytes for our Arch installation. You could do bigger. This will be enough for a base system. You might want to do more if you want to hold bigger files and stuff. But for what we're doing, this is fine for now. So we're going to shrink that. And this also takes a little while. All right. So now you see we have this unallocated 20 gigabytes right here, so we are good. So let's try and boot into our UEFI. This doesn't always work in the virtual machine. And also it shouldn't be necessary in the virtual machine. But for your main device, for an actual hardware computer, you will definitely need to do this. This is a very important step, so that's why we're going through it. So we go to troubleshoot, click enter, then advanced options, click enter again, and we want to go to our UEFI firmware settings. So it requires another restart, which often doesn't work in the virtual machine. We'll see though. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so you're going to get something like this. It looks different for every machine. So the boot manager is probably where we want to go. You can choose your boot setup. So not this one. So all of BIOS and UEFI firmware settings are different depending on your computer. Maintenance manager, main boot options. Go back to main page. You just kind of got to find something with secure boot in it. This one, since it's not supported, there might not actually be anything, but this is kind of what you have to do, and it's different for every computer you're on, so it's hard to say. But so that's how you get in here, and you have to find around secure boot, make sure it's disabled, then you can continue. All right, and then so once you have secure boot disabled and fast startup turned off, and you have partitioned your hard drive, we are ready to shut down Windows 10, and we'll start the Arch setup as well. All right. Now that we have all of our Windows settings changed, we are ready to take out the Windows ISO and put the Arch Linux ISO in. So we're just going to go to our current state, and we want settings, storage, find the ISO, click X. We want to find the Arch Linux ISO. For this one, we are going to use the August, the most recent one that we have at the moment. Choosing that one. Alright, and we're going to click OK. And then we want to just take a snapshot so we can save our state as it is right now. So if we mess up anything on this install, we can just go back to before we changed anything on Windows, and before we did anything with Arch, and we still have our Windows settings, and we're ready to jump right into Arch. So to take a snapshot, which is just an image of where the virtual machine is at the moment, we are going to click Take. I'll call this one Ready for Arch. And click OK. And to restore return to a previous snapshot, we just have to click this Restore button. But we're ready to go on, so we're going to click Start. Now that we have all of our Windows settings changed, we are ready to take out the Windows ISO and put the Arch Linux ISO in. So we're just going to go to our current state, and we want settings, storage, find the ISO, click X. We want to find the Arch Linux ISO. For this one, we are going to use the August, the most recent one that we have at the moment. Choosing that one. Alright, and we're going to click OK. And then we want to just take a snapshot so we can save our state as it is right now. So if we mess up anything on this install, we can just go back to before we changed anything on Windows, and before we did anything with Arch, and we still have our Windows settings, and we're ready to jump right into Arch. So to take a snapshot, which is just an image of where the virtual machine is at the moment, we are going to click Take. I'll call this one Ready for Arch. And click OK. And to restore return to a previous snapshot, we just have to click this Restore button. But we're ready to go on, so we're going to click Start. And so we want to boot directly into BIOS mode, so we want to hit F12 as we're starting up to get into our system manager and not boot fully into Windows, so that we can go right into our bootable medium. Alright, so once you have that set up, we can just go into our search bar to get into our settings. And we just want to go into system recovery so that we can get into our BIOS mode and boot from our disk. Into recovery. And advanced startup, and then we can just restart now. Alright, and we can go to choose a device, click enter, and we want to choose our CD-ROM. So you gotta look around for it, and ours is the UEFI, because that's we set our bootable medium to be a UEFI boot, and